Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're gonna look at the other Entrati weapon that was released in the Deimos update. This is the Trumna rifle. If you want to use this for an Eidolon build, this is probably what it's going to look like. This weapon actually starts with 0 polarities on it. I've had to forma this thing 6 times because you will soon realize when you're using it that without a minus recoil mod on it, it is nearly unusable. So if we take a look at the build, the first mod that we're going to start off with is Amalgam Serration. In a hunt, we want to use the Amalgam version instead of the regular Serration so that we get the extra sprint speed since it carries over into Archwing. We are going to be using Hellfire to add heat, but this is going to be the only elemental mod on the build since we will be using Shock Trooper to make radiation. Then we will have Split Chamber to add our multi-shot as well as Vigilante armaments since there's only 2 ways to add this onto your weapon and we want as much multi-shot as possible. Then we will have our standard crit mods, Vital Sense, and Point Strike, since the only thing that really matters in Eidolons is crits. The weapon has a decent fire rate, but for something being full auto, it leaves a little bit to be desired. We are going to be putting Vile Acceleration on this build. With all the different sources of base damage that we will be using, the minus 15% damage honestly doesn't affect much at all, since unlike what may be believed, it is not a minus 15% total damage, it is only a minus 15% base damage, so this is basically just taking 1 rank off your Amalgam Serration. After that, our last mod we're going to put into this slot is Argon Scope, because this weapon only has 24% base critical chance, and it's really not reliable enough than what I would like for a hunt to be, where you can be struggling to even hit yellow crits on the first limbs of each Eidolon, since you only reach 60% with Point Strike. Using Argon Scope will let you get to about 93% or so, and make it much more reliable, since the difference between hitting a crit and not hitting a crit is so massive to the point you might as well have not been shooting at all. Finally, we will be using Stabilizer to deal with the atrocious recoil of this weapon. The next thing that we will take a look at here is any supporting builds. So I'm going to be bringing along my Pandero this time. Since Trumna is a hit scan weapon, I have no concerns about using it for water limbs. I'm going to be putting the Synth Charge mod on my Pandero here. Although it has other uses for fast charge and whatnot, how it will complement my Trumna is increasing the holster reload speed. Likewise, I will be running my Worm Prime with the 2 synth mods, Synth Fiber and Synth Deconstruct, so that I can increase that set bonus even more. As if you look at the Trumna here, it has a 5-second base reload speed. This is even slower than the Sepulchrum we looked at yesterday, and because of that, you really don't want to be manually reloading this. Even if it has a magazine size of 200, you really don't want to bottom this out, and if anything, it just makes it easier. Now, since this is a meme weapon run, as usual, I'm going to be bringing a Shattering Impact Sarpa to strip the base armor. Aside from that, I will want other sources of attack speed such as Quickening, Primed Fury, and Gladiator Vice. I'm going to be running Amalgam Organ Shatter just so that I can speed up my heavy attack if I accidentally use it. I have Tech Gravity on just to pull things in if need be so I can propa them all. My last mod I'm going to be fitting on is the Modus Impact mod for the set bonus. It can help you by blocking knockdowns while you are in the air. I'm going to be running the other Modus mod on my Worm Prime's Sweeper so that I can make it more reliable. Additionally, on the Sweeper, I will be using the 4 Vigilante mods to boost the critical chance of my Trumna even more. Now on this Volt build, I'm going to be using Arcane Rage as my first Arcane, since the damage on this weapon is actually somewhat lacking with the OK base damage and passable fire rate. This Arcane is refreshable and it adds 180% base damage, so it's definitely going to be something I'm relying on to make this Ribbonless build work out. Now I'm running Arcane Acceleration as my second Arcane, but this is only to simulate the effects of what a Wisp would do in the team with the haste mode. I'm actually going to be running an Arcane Avenger instead, but just for the purpose of getting a feel for this weapon, you will be seeing me using Acceleration. Avenger is another Arcane that can be refreshed whenever it procs, And it's important because it can add a flat 45% crit chance, which will help me even more trying to stabilize out the damage, since I'm really concerned on just breaking the limbs of this weapon from some early testing I did before recording this video, where it seemed to vary a lot based on the RNG of the crit rolls I got. So let's step into a damage test right here. First, I'm going to spawn the 110 Drake Harmonic Bombards, and I'm going to Shock Trooper myself here and set up my Arcane Rage proc. Then I'm going to place my shield and proc Vigor Swap, and I'm going to shoot the limb just as we described in the previous video, and you will see here it kills the bombards pretty quickly, but it appears to be a little bit slower than the sepulchrum that I tested in the previous video. And this is why I was saying that I really wanted to slot in Arcane Avenger, since right here you can see that my inconsistency on the crit is really tearing into my TTK on the bombards. So we're going to set up this test again from slightly further distance, and this is how I'm going to show you that I believe Stabilizer is a very important mod. Even just being about 20 meters away, if I shoot like this, it just kicks up still pretty far, and I'm going to have to pull down to keep the shot online with the thighs like this. Obviously the Synovia are a little bit larger, and this won't be as much of an issue, but you can only imagine how bad the kick would be if I was not running Stabilizer on this build. Now, as another thing to consider, just like the Sepulchrum, this weapon actually has a little bit of an AoE on it, and you can see how when I shoot this into the floor, it will interrupt any further shots with a stagger. So you will have to keep this in mind if allies pass too close to you, or cats or other pets get in your way. If you shoot them when they pass through, it will stop you from shooting. Once again, you may want to consider running Prime Sure-Footed because of this. Now let's take a look at the build one more time. Heavy caliber is an option that you can run. Personally, I don't want to run it, even though it doesn't seem to have much of an impact on the spread of the weapon. As you can see here, the spread doesn't seem to really change at all. It is still mostly quite pinpoint on the accuracy. But the issue with this is I'm giving up a mod slot on the weapon, and the build is already very tight as is, so I would rather just try to even out my sources of base damage, or just source it from Arcane Rage instead of using a weapon mod slot. As you can see, Arcane Rage already provides so much, and I already have Vigor Swap on the build, as well as Serration, and it just really makes it unnecessary to use Heavy Caliber. I'd rather use it for pushing more multi-shot, or more fire rate, or more crit stats, rather than pumping it all into base damage, since it works into the same premise of how you wouldn't run Serration on Chroma, since you're just stacking so much base damage to start out with. Our last topic today will be the altfire. So the altfire of the Trumna works like the Kuva Bramma, where you shoot the main projectile and it explodes into a lot of bomblets. These bomblets can ricochet and have very strong firepower, easily nuking a room. As you can see there, they had no trouble cleaning up the bombards, but the only problem is these bomblets fall down. So in a hunt, if you use this, say for the cap shot, only the initial projectile will hit the head, whereas the rest will fall down and most likely miss the Eidolon and do basically 0 damage. For this reason, I would not recommend to use it for hunting. Additionally, to use the altfire, you need to charge it by getting 5 kills, and this will fill up a bar at the bottom of your reticle. There are no enemies that you can reasonably kill in an Eidolon hunt to do this, as Synovia kills and Vomvalus kills do not count. However, for normal gameplay, I can see this being a very fun altfire to use. As you can see, it easily nukes the 145 corrupted heavy gunners here. Aside from that, I don't think there was anything else that I missed. If I did, feel free to let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and that will be all. Thank you very much.